Hey everyone, Toon Word here. Today we're going to be talking about Edd, Ed, and Eddy. And first we're going to be talking about the leader of the group and one that got him in all the shenanigans, Eddy. Now, with Eddy, he was the guy that always had a plan and always did everything he could to get 25 cents for a job record. He did everything. When I mean everything from A to Z. This guy would be a millionaire if it wasn't for all the shenanigans he got in. And I bet he probably will be a millionaire when he grows up. Well, cartoons, so I guess he would never grow up. But still, you know what I mean. Alright, let's get into it, guys. Eddy. He had so many plans. One time, he literally created New York out of cardboard. Now, I don't know where he got enough cardboard for all that, but he got enough to make New York City, and the plan kind of worked out a little bit. Now, when I say that, I mean because most of his plans don't work out a lot, and we'll get into that when we get into it. But his first, well, we don't know his first plan. Well, yes, we do. His first plan when he met Ed, well, when he met the other two Eds, let's just go with that. That one's a lot better. When he met the other two Eds, Double D was in case was just moving in the block when they was 5 years old, and that's when they found out that all three of them have the same name, just spelled differently. So Ed and Eddy and Ed was already pretty close friends. Double D came out there and basically birds flocked together. They all kind of after that one day they all stuck together. Now they had an idea. Eddy still had an idea on how to make money at the age of 5. 5. When I was 5 years old, I didn't have no idea how to make money or even care. I was too busy watching Looney Tunes or Sesame Street or something. So Eddy already got me beat on that category. Now, when they was 5 years old, Eddy had an idea. Now, am I talking about lemonade stand on the front street asking people 25 cents just to get a drink? No, he had a plan. What was the plan? I think it was a lemonade stand actually. No, it wasn't. It was something a lot different than that. I can't remember the exact details of it, but the plan was whatever the plan was at the time was for them to get 25 cents. And the reason I'm going to keep saying 25 cents a lot in this video because that's all they ever cared about. Eddy wanted to get 25 cents from everyone to get a job record. And why? Because they only cost 25 cents. Now, he had an idea for this. Now, surprise, surprise, the plan messed up and backfired on him. And somehow, Eddy, cartoon, magic, power, or Toon Force, whatever you want to call it. I think they call it Toon Force. It messed up, and somehow Ed, the dumb one, ate Eddy. Things like this happen a lot for them. The Toon Force is strong in Ed, Ed, and Eddy. Let me just say that. The Toon Force is. Now, let's fast forward back to I should say, one of my favorite shenanigans they got into, which was the pirate scene. The pirate scene, or I guess it's more like a cruise. Now, somehow, this neighborhood of theirs has just about everything you can think of. It has, well, I guess a sewer like any other neighborhood and other things, but it also has a huge lake that you might as well just call it a river to me at the time anyway. But they have just about everything. Cul-de-sac was the name of it, but this cul-de-sac was looking like a city in my eyes. Now, he had an idea of getting people to do a cruise, to get on him to do a cruise, and they built a little boat. They made the boat out of what they make the boat out of? A tire, one big tire. They made the boat out of a tire. Got I guess wood together and put it all together, and then they was able to put a refrigerator in it and make a little moat or whatever. And then they got to work, and in the beginning, these plans always look like they're starting off pretty great in the beginning, but later and later on in the episode, they start falling apart. Now, this one was looking good for quite a bit of the time. Now, they had Rolf, which we will get into. He's like the former. They had Jimmy, and they had Johnny and Plankton. I guess you got to count both of them together. We'll get into them later. Now, they had both of them together. All of them paid 25 cents. Yes, even Plankton had to pay 25 cents. And Plankton is a board. Like I said, we'll get into it later. But they paid 25 cents. And everything was going good. Double D playing not a guitar, but I guess it would be more like a flute type of thing. I don't know the name of instrument. I'm not an instrument guy. But they was playing it and everything. Ed was doing what he does, basically being Ed. He's the strongest when it comes to the tuning force. Ed, he was basically the motor. Yes, I said it right, the motor. Eddy was the captain, of course. Everything was going good for him until the Canker sisters came, their arch nemesis, and that where everything went all under the. That basically it was like a pirate group fighting against a cruiser, and that was awesome. They had everything you can think of. They going all at it. And next thing you know, it fell apart for them. And then the next group of people wanted to come, and well, they didn't have a ship no more. But that was one of the first and one of my favorite episodes of Ed and Eddy with Eddy anyway. Now, let's get to Double D. And Double D is the geek. But he was the guy that was always into the book, science, and always trying to tell them, Eddy, you can't do this. Eddy, you can't do that. He didn't want to listen to it. So guess what? Eddy or Ed, neither of them want to listen to it. So guess what? They went along with whatever plan Eddy had. Now Double D, he was the guy that always into the books. Always. Make straight A's. He was the one that if you had a friend you would really want Double D around. Eddy and Ed was the two that you really didn't want around because they will always get you in trouble. But Double D was smart. Double D, he knew what he was doing. Double D was the one that was a master at anything. Apparently, he can draw, he can play the flute, the guitar, but he always organized. I need to get always organized. Everything when you see in this room, he had tapes on everything, reminding on everything they did. One of my favorite episodes on Ed for Double D would be, you see, back in the day, I really wasn't that much of a fan of Double D until later. But I will say this. I was always interested in Double D was because I wanted to know what was in that hat. He never let anyone see what was in that hat of his. It was like if you see what's in that hat, it was like you would die of embarrassment or like it would make you throw up or something. I don't know. But it was embarrassing with that hat of his. He always had it kept on. And the animation team or the team itself, they did such a good job of showing no one what was under that hat. I just like, what is under that hat? I started thinking like, does he have like three eyes? If he's an alien? What is going on? Is it like just his brain because he's just so smart? What's going on with that hat of his? But oh, the episode when Sarah fell in love with him. That was my favorite episode with Double D. The episode when Sarah fell in love with him. That one was my favorite episode of Double D because Ed being the foolish, I had to say protective. I just say, well, I guess he was protective, but he was a foolish, protective older brother, and Sarah was just so infatuated with Double D. It was like he always had to do something with Double. She always had to do stuff with Double D, and Double D so clueless at the time was just like, didn't know what was going on. Jimmy, which was so jealous, and he was mad. And I can't remember how that episode ended, but that was my favorite episode with Ed, with Double D. Now we get into the stupid one. Ed. He was fun, but he was a stupid one. I can't even remember. Oh, I got another episode that I remember him very well. But Ed was just the stupid one. He was the one, as I said before. He was strong in the tubing force. All of them were, but Ed was just extremely strong with the tune force. Now, he was so strong with the tune force, the things he did still doesn't make sense to me to this day. And I'm a guy that watch anime all the time and cartoons, and it still doesn't make no sense to me. Now, Ed will be the one so where apparently he got grounded for something, and he lived in a basement, which shows how much his parents loved him that much. He lived in a basement, and his parents literally moved the stairs because he was grounded. Literally taking, I mean, moving out. No, I don't mean like they locked him up or something. I don't mean like they just, oh, let me just take a few steps or something or whatever. They took the stairs off because he was grounded, so he could not go anywhere. And you thinking of this as a kid, you like, did his parents love him or what? What did he do to literally get stairs off his room where he can't even leave his room? Basement. So it's like, what in the world going on here? But Ed, the lovable oaf, you can't help but to love him. You can't help but to. Even though he give you 1,000 or billions of ways that you should be really questioning his sanity, and I guess you shouldn't because he is insane, but still. And then we talk about Kevin, the cool guy, the guy with the bike that always was with the hot girl, which was Naz, and we'll get to her next. But Kevin, he always called Ed and Eddy dorks. He was the one with the bike that always riding on the bike and do not touch that bike of his, man. He was the guy that had the hat, the green shirt, and just like, yeah, man, this is cool. Yeah, man. Always beating the crap out of Ed and Eddy every time. He was like the bully, but not the bully because 9 times out of 10 they deserved it. 9 times out of 10. Now that 1% of the time they didn't was like, well, I don't know if they deserve that one, but most of the time they do deserve it, and they always getting on his nerves all the time. I mean, one episode he was just giving jawbreakers away to everyone, everybody in the cul-de-sac. He was even going to give one to Ed and Eddy. The only thing of it is, Eddy, being the paranoid guy, didn't want to listen to it and didn't understand at the time until later into the episode. And then he doing everything he can to try to get on Kevin's good side. Next thing you know, at the end of the episode, he's taking a bath with Kevin. And Kevin like, what the heck is going on here? Like I said, Ed, Ed, and Eddy was legendary. Okay? Legendary. I don't care what anyone say. Ed, and Eddy was legendary with all the characteristics. And now we got to get into Rolf. Rolf was the farmer that always had every animal in that backyard of his. The pigs that will he would have a mud pit for the pigs. He would basically do everything and doing all the outside work. When I picture the strongest people in Ed and Eddy, I picture Kevin and then Rolf. And I honestly want to say Rolf is stronger than Kevin because Rolf was doing everything you can think of in that backyard when it came to farming, planting, taking care of the animals. It was like it was one thing after the other with Rolf. I'm telling you. I remember one episode that him and Ed had a fight. Eddy, not Ed. My bad. I'm gonna get that confused a lot, so be ready. I know I already did, but still. Rolf and Eddy was in a fight, and they fought for fish with a fish. It was like the whole kind of like the mud pit, how you do the tug of war and you tugging people in the mud pit or so, and whoever gets to the mud pit loses. That, and then they had the whole dramatic thing of it, like they fighting on a cliff, and then you see like you see like a plank, and then they fighting on it, and then next thing you see is you try to look. Eddy looks down, and all he sees is nothing but the black abyss. Kevin recording the whole thing. Ed and Double D is just like, oh my god, this is monstrous. Eddy is just like, I'm tired. I don't think we should do this anymore. Rolf didn't have none of that. Beat the crap out of him with that fish. And then at the end of the episode, he was like it never happened. It was Rolf is such the type of guy like once he gets back at you, whatever he gets back at you with, because most of the time Rolf is a nice guy. But once he gets back at you, he was like, oh, okay, I'm good with it now. Ed boys. That's what Rolf called them. Always had to call them Ed boys. That was it. He didn't call one. He would call one stupid Ed boy, one short Ed boy, and one smart Ed boy. That was it. Rolf knew because like, yeah, y'all names are too confusing sometimes, so just call him off. And let's get to Naz, the pretty girl. You know that's that girl, that cute girl on the block that every kid loves or in love with or whatever. Naz is basically the your childhood crush or that girl next door. That's who Naz is. She's the one that has the cute hair, always nice polished nails, always dresses nice. That's who Naz was. Now, Naz and Kevin kind of had a thing going, honestly. But everyone had a thing for Naz. Everyone fell in love with Naz the moment you talked to her. It was kind of like that dopey look where you get when you look at a cute girl, or like you can't, your tongue is tied where you can't really talk right. That was Naz. Every step of the way, that was Naz. Naz was always like that. And she was the one, just like I remember one episode, Eddy thought he was having a date with Naz, but Naz was basically babysitting him. And he was jealous of him, just like, how do you have a date with Naz? Eddy just like, because I got it like that. That's how I got it, because I got it like that. And it's just like at the end of it, you can tell Naz have a huge party, and basically, and then Eddy realized, wait, you telling me that you're my babysitter? He thought it was a date the whole time, poor guy. Everyone laughed at him, and next thing you know, he fell asleep. He fell in his room with the door on his tongue. Yes, on his tongue, literally. I would have to. I'll show you a picture up here, but that's how he was looking. It was funny. Now, Johnny and Plankton. Johnny kind of seemed like the sad guy that didn't have any friends because he had an imaginary friend, but Plankton, Plankton was the smart one of Johnny. I don't care what anyone say. Now you can say, well, Plankton was an actual guy because he was literally a plank or a block of wood. So it's like, it's Johnny the one that came up with the plans, and so it was like his subconscious. I don't care. You can say whatever you want. In my kid brain, I'm thinking, little parch. I'm thinking that Plankton is the smart one. Now, bad guy, whatever, but Plankton, he always, no matter it, he had a sentient being. Let me just say that. Let me just go with that. Plankton was a being of his own. The imaginary friend. When you're younger, I know you had an imaginary friend. I remember I had an imaginary friend. I can't remember the name, and I can't remember why or why I created him. Probably just being a kid, and having an imaginary friend. But Plankton was more than imaginary friend. Literally, Johnny would look one way, like this, and Plankton would be right here. When he looks back, Plankton gone. He just gone. You just like, what happened? Johnny looking for him all over the place. Like, where'd Plankton go? You see Plankton either playing cards or somewhere else making money. Plankton always had something, and Johnny like, what's going on here? And I'm like, Plankton's the sentient being. I don't care what anybody says. But Johnny, Bugs Lightyear, Infinity and Beyond for Plankton. Every time Plankton was lost, every time Plankton was missing, or whatever, Johnny would do everything he can to find him. The few times people took Plankton, and Johnny did everything he could to get Plankton back. Those two were ride or dies, and I don't care what you say yet again. Plankton was the smart one, and Johnny was just there for the ride, and Plankton was a sentient being. I'll just leave it at that. Now, let's talk about Jimmy and Sarah. Jimmy being the timid little one with the braces, even though the braces was like all the way around his face. I always thought that was funny. I always thought that was cool. And Sarah was the mean little sister. Okay. She was mean. She was the mean little sister. Now, I had friends that fell in love with Sarah. I was that fell in love with Naz. But there was a few that fell in love with Sarah. I wasn't one of those few. I honestly thought Sarah was too mean and a bratty kid for no reason. That's what I always thought, and I'm always going to stick to that. Now, Jimmy, on the other hand, Jimmy would be that timid guy, but you know what they say? That quiet ones are the one you need to watch out for. Because Jimmy was the one that was way smarter than what he appeared to be. At first, I thought Jimmy was a female for a long time. But it turns out he was just a timid, hide under Sarah. And yeah, I ship those two. As much as I don't like Sarah, I ship those two. Yes. It's basically you got to. Kevin and Naz, Jimmy and Sarah. and maybe sometime Sarah and Double D. But Double D, Ed, and Eddy, they all got their own little. But anyway, Jimmy. Now I'll say this: I remember one episode with Jimmy where the Eds did something to him that completely broke his spirits, and the only thing he thought about was revenge. And when I mean revenge, I mean this episode was so freaky to me when I saw it. I'm like, what's going on here? Yes, quiet little Jimmy had a plan, and I mean a huge Machiavellis or whatever Machiavelli. Well, that's a word I can't say. Anyway, let's just go with a huge Moriarty type of plan to mess with Ed, Ed, and Eddy. And did it work? It worked in spades. And I mean in spades, I mean in spades. It worked extremely well. In the end, Ed and Eddy thought they were not only going crazy, but also to be with their nemesis, the Cankers. And the Cankers is, when I say their nemesis, it's literally the exact opposite of them, but females. And when Jimmy finished his plan and told them the plan at the end, Eddy was furious. Ed, lovable oaf, didn't realize what was going on. And Double D was just like, brilliant. Your plan was brilliant. And yes, it was. Eddy even taught Jimmy everything he knew about scheming and everything. And guess what? Jimmy ideas actually worked 99% of the time. Just about every percent of the time, actually. I know the math on that is terrible, but still, 100% of the time, let's just go with that. Making huge amounts of money with trampoline ideas and everything else. And Eddy just sitting like, what the heck is going on here? Well, like I said, Jimmy was brilliant. And the quiet one is the one you need to watch out for. Now, Sarah, you can tell what Sarah is just by looking at her from the first episode. The mean girl that beats up her older brother all the time, and the girl that always looks after Jimmy. Now, Sarah was, I gotta admit, Sarah was okay, sort of. Like I said, I wasn't that much of a fan of her much, but Sarah was a ride or die for Jimmy. Jimmy and Sarah was ride or die. 100% of the time, they was always riding for each other. Jimmy was always jealous if Sarah was with another person. Sarah will always go back to Jimmy at the end of every episode. So they were ride or dies, and that's why I shipped them together. But like I said before, these characters were legendary, and Eddy was definitely legendary. But anyway, let me know who your favorite character is, and if y'all think I should said more y'all favorite episodes of Edd and Eddy, let me know in the comments below. All right, catch you later.